From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on Ag Day, what could be any better than Machinery Pete at the National Farm Machinery Show?
And it does match exactly what we're seeing on the auction market, which surprises the heck out of people.
Another round of trade talks between the U.S. and China.
We're going to be leveling the playing field.
And the markets looking for relief after taking a nosedive.
Ag Day, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Traders looking for a rebound today after grain markets suffered losses on Friday. At one point, both soybeans and wheat dropping double digits. Wheat hit particularly hard. It started when March soft red winter wheat futures fell to the lowest point in more than a year. That set off new fund selling. The market also not getting any positive news from month-old sales data released last week. Soybeans suffering a third weekly decline. That's after the USDA reported a rare reduction in exports of 612,000 metric tons in the week ending January 3rd. New sales were also offset by China canceling 807,000 metric tons. We'll have much more on the market drop from the floor of the CME coming up. That news coming in as it was announced more discussions are expected in Washington this week between the U.S. and China in an effort to end the trade dispute between the two countries. That was announced at the end of the 2 days of talks in Beijing last week. U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer led the U.S. delegation. They met with China's top economic advisor and also with China's President Xi Jinping. The White House releasing a statement after the meeting saying the two sides have had detailed and intensive discussions that led to progress between the sides, but also saying much work remains. The U.S. is scheduled to raise import taxes on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods at the start of March.
We're a lot closer than we ever were in this country with having a real trade deal. We're covering everything, all of the points that people have been talking about for years that said couldn't be done.
The president saying he might invite Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to take part in the talks before he makes a deal. He also says he's considering extending that March deadline for tariffs. While speaking about China, President Trump also announcing he's declared a national emergency so he can finish building the southern border wall. The move will allow him to bypass Congress to spend more money to erect barriers on the border. In an effort to avoid another government shutdown last week, Congress gave the president about $1.4 billion. Now, he signed that plan Friday, but the deal is well below the $5.7 billion he insisted he needed.
But the courts will determine that. Look, I expect to be sued. I shouldn't be sued. Very rarely do you get sued when you do national emergency. And then other people say, oh, if you use it for this, now what are we using it for? We've got to get rid of drugs and gangs and people. It's an invasion. We have an invasion of drugs and criminals coming into our country that we stop, but it's very hard to stop. With a wall, it would be very easy.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying they'll take action in Congress, in the courts, and in the public. Inside the trillion-dollar spending bill, new language calling for an indefinite delay of USDA's plans to reorganize the Economic Research Service. USDA had planned to move the ERS under the Office of Chief Economist. The legislation also asking for more information before USDA continues plans to relocate ERS and the National Institute of Food and Agriculture outside of the Beltway. The Federal Reserve District's rolling out the latest economic numbers from farm country. Now, in the 8th District of St. Louis, that includes 7 Midwest and Mid-South states, despite continued downward pressure on farm incomes, prices of land rose. During the fourth quarter, lenders report declines in farm income relative to a year ago, with some banks saying they're seeing an increase in bankruptcies following the late harvest. Farmland values rose nearly 3.5% in the fourth quarter. Cash rents were also nearly 3% higher. Ranch values were up 6.5%. And from the 7th District in Chicago, 3/4 of bankers expecting farmland values to be stable, at least through the first quarter. But financial conditions worsened in the district to end 2018. Repayment rates, they decreased, while loan demand, loan renewals, and extensions were all on the rise. The share of the district farm loan portfolio indicated as having major or severe repayment problems was 6.6% in the fourth quarter. That's the highest since 1999. Now, as far as farmland values go, they ended the year steady with no change, although farmland values did tick lower in Iowa. Good yields helping temper pressure from lower commodity prices. Economists saying, looking at it in another way, after accounting for inflation, the district actually experienced a yearly decrease of 2% in farmland values for 2018, which makes it the fifth straight annual real decline, the longest downturn since the 1980s. A new study says there is evidence to support a link between exposure to glyphosate and an increasing risk of a certain cancer, the makers of glyphosate saying it's yet another example of bad science. The findings come from 5 U.S. scientists as they contradict the EPA. The study claims the weed killer raises the risk of non-Hodgkin lymphoma by 41%. Right now, Monsanto and its owner Bayer AG face more than 9,000 lawsuits in the U.S. They were brought by people who blame the chemical for giving them NHL. We reached out to Bayer for a statement. The statement says, quote, "It is a statistical manipulation that is at odds with the extensive body of science, 40 years of real-world experience, and the conclusion of regulators." The statement listed several regulators, including the EPA, that, quote, "support the conclusion that glyphosate-based products are safe when used as directed and that glyphosate is not carcinogenic," end quote. Bayer says the study is a classic case of garbage in, garbage out. A new problem in California, too much rain. Waves of heavy rain pounding the state, filling normally dry creeks and rivers, leading to mudslides. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman has more on the damage in today's Crop Comments. Mike.
Thanks, Clinton. Flash flood warnings blanketed a huge swath east and south of Los Angeles. This included areas burned bare by a summer wildfire in the Santa Ana Mountains. And just look at what happened. This photo, shared by Farm Journal team member Annalisa Laca, this was her parents' driveway in San Andreas, just a river of mud there. This storm was the latest in a series of storms that has all but eliminated the drought level dryness in California this winter. And taking a look at that drought, you can see there's not much left in California, but there's still some areas in Oregon and also the Four Corner region, but even those have been improving. We'll have your forecast for the next week and the next month coming up, but first here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
Coming up, we'll have more on the pressures pushing on markets this Monday, and we take a closer look at those soybean exports. And later, coping with depression without medication. That's ahead in the country.
AgDay, brought to you by Precision Planting, provider of practical and effective precision ag technologies to help make farmers smarter every season. Learn more at precisionplanting.com.
We told you at the top of the newscast, commodities took a beating on Friday on several fronts. Here's more now from the CNA.
Today, the soybeans were mixed, really traded on both sides of unchanged. There's been confusion over the state of emergency that's been started with the White House, and the markets really don't know how to respond to the president's remarks, and it just seems we're looking for real confirmation to really take place before the market's going to start to move. Corn was mixed today. The USDA reports that there has been some new exports. The interesting thing is that if it's confirmed that they actually are going to China, we could see a real run-up on the corn, maybe even 10 to 20 cents higher. You know, who knows? We haven't had a limit move in quite a while. Everyone's kind of watching the White House to figure out exactly what we're going to be doing here. But wheat, on the other hand, really fell. The futures just raced to that $5 mark. You know, in 2 days we were down 25 cents. It seems that yesterday's the Valentine's Day massacre, you know, just opened up the floodgates, and then we had continued follow-through selling that pushed the market lower. But then it just kind of stopped. And so we know that $5 is a real benchmark here and a very big support number, and it's held so far. So we'll see. The export sales have been slow, and they're well behind last year. And it just seems that the fewer acres that are going to be planted this year just have not really had any impact on the market right now. But there are some reasons to be positive here, but today not enough. So it's we have a long weekend coming up, and I think everyone kind of gave up the ship a little bit, and we're going to restart it again on Tuesday. A short week next week, we could have a lot more volatility.
Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing, our guest here at the Agribusiness Desk today. And Sam, all eyes have kind of been on China over the last I don't know, year. It seems like maybe 2. And it's particularly on soybean demand. And we got new numbers from USDA. Did that give us any indications on maybe where we sit with soybean demand from our biggest customer traditionally, which is China?
I don't think so. You know, the challenge is that all these numbers are changing as we speak, even today. We're going to have a trade delegation from the U.S. Going to China next week, so we'll see what they can work out. To date, if we believe that we'll ship their most recent purchases, somewhere around 10 million metric tons is what we've sold to them this year, which is, you know, on average, if you average the 3 marketing years going into this, about 30% or 33% of what we normally do. So no matter what you do, you're going to end up with some extra supplies here at the end of the year. I think you know, what we need to be somewhat optimistic on is can China continue to make purchases, whether it's now or towards the end of the year. But backing up on us at some point is going to be the supply in the countryside and the bins. You know, a lot of beans are still being held, maybe more stored than normal. We just saw USDA confirm a record yield, so we know the supply is out there. Getting to that June, July, August timeframe, I think that's a risk for flat price and basis in general, especially if this year's coming crop looks like it's going to be in good shape.
Well, and we've got 900 million bushels, you know, that on ending stocks. What about other buyers beyond China? We have sold more beans to other places this year.
Yeah, and on the front half of that, you know, we saw all kinds of, you know, record purchases to, you know, countries in Europe, I mean, all over the world. And I would expect some of that to continue. It's not going to be enough to offset, I think, some of the losses. So again, I think we're just in a situation here where maybe the best case scenario we could see on September 1st, as far as ending stocks are concerned, would be maybe 550 to 750 million bushels, I think is a safe number. I think we've printed the high in the bean carryout for now, but that doesn't mean all things are rosy. I think the spreads, the basis tells you that. And keep in mind, you know, again, focus on the world in general. Our stocks on the world market are still twice what they were, you know, here 5-6 years ago. So we've got a lot of drawdown to take place before the market can really get nervous.
Real quick, is $9 a good price for this year?
Futures?
Yeah.
You know,
hard to say, right?
For next year, I haven't been, you know, too willing to look at selling a lot of beans under $9.50 because if something does change, keep in mind the market knows all this stuff too. It's kind of baked in. And if you make a sale there, you almost have to have a pretty, now each operation is different, but you got to have a pretty strong yield to feel real great about that going home. And I think the bigger challenge is if something does change, how do you defend that? I think it's a lot easier to get more aggressive with the old crop sales, so you know where you stand, you know where your government payment is, you can move on and use some weather opportunities this summer to take advantage of the higher prices.
All right, good advice, appreciate it, thanks. We'll be back with more Ag Day here in just a minute.
For marketing advice, call Sam Hudson with Corn Belt Marketing at 800-655-3380. Explore cotton production and profitability at 2 upcoming events in Lubbock, Texas on February 26th and Tifton, Georgia on February 28th. Register for free online today.
Welcome back to Ag Day. Here, meteorologist Mike Hoffman looking at rain over the last week, and really the West Coast might get tons of rain.
I know, and we have more coming, as you're going to see in my forecast. But over the past week, we have seen 2 areas that have had a fair amount of moisture, a lot of it in the form of rain. Obviously, some of that is in the form of snow across the Great Lakes, northern Mississippi Valley, and some of the higher elevations out west. But you can see this area from northeast Arkansas into western Kentucky and Tennessee ended up with 2 to 3 inches of rain over the past week. And this takes us from a week ago Saturday through this past Friday. These are estimates from radar. And radar doesn't always pick up everything, I'll tell you that, especially in the mountainous regions out west. And so this is showing huge amounts. Now, a lot of that snow, obviously, in the mountains there of eastern California, but lots of moisture up and down the coast there, as you can see, all the way down into southern California, and that extends inland as well into parts of Idaho and Utah. Now, take a look at the jet stream. You can see that storm system there pulling east. Another one is going to be digging down the coast as we head into the middle of the week. It stays warm in the southeast. There's that next storm digging down the coast. Another storm coming into, well, the whole area again, the Pacific Northwest and eventually all the way into the Southwest as we head into the following week. So this pattern is just going to continue, at least for now. There will be shots of colder air and moisture coming east as well, but it's really the west coast that gets the bulk of it. Temperatures this week, I'm going to go below normal for most of the country, northern Mississippi Valley westward, as well as most of the Great Lakes in the northeast, above normal then from West Virginia and Virginia southward. Precipitation this week, below normal only in Montana, Wyoming, the Dakotas, and parts of Nebraska, above normal up and down the East Coast, Gulf Coast, and obviously the West Coast. As far as the next 30 days are concerned, below normal for a good chunk of the middle of the country, central and northern plains especially, above normal in the far southeast, and the 30-day outlook for precipitation. I'm going below normal northern Mississippi, parts of Texas, above normal Gulf Coast, East Coast, and the Southwest. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Heading to Haver, Montana, first of all, partly sunny and quite cold, high of only -6. Taking a look at Salina, Kansas, cloudy and cold, a few flurries possible, high of just 20. And Lake City, Florida, it's warm there, a couple of showers, high of 78.
Who would be more at home at the National Farm Machinery Show than Machinery Pete? He gets us excited about new and used equipment and how sales compare right now. Coming up.
Ag Day, brought to you by new Delaro fungicide for corn and soybeans. Achieve personal best yields.
Sales of new farm equipment are starting the year out strong, but what about used? Tyne Morgan and Machinery Pete join us from the National Farm Machinery Show with a look at what could trend this year.
Well, it's been a while since we caught up about equipment values, used equipment values. I know Association of Equipment Manufacturers just came out with their flash report. Does it kind of correlate with what you're seeing across the country, Greg?
Yeah, it's fascinating, Tyne. AEM came out with their numbers both for end of 18 and through January of 19. And basically sales of combines and tractors up versus the year before, and up January 19 versus January 18. And it does match exactly what we're seeing on the auction market, which surprises the heck out of people. But I think, people are needing to update. And there's still, there's kind of a dividing line out there, but there are some strong balance sheets, and those people are updating their lines. And so for good condition used equipment at auction, we're seeing some really competitive bidding here, late 18, early 19.
Well, it'll be interesting to see if that can continue into 2019.
Yeah, will the money last? That's sort of what people are saying out there, and we'll be tracking it day by day.
All right, thanks. More earnings this time from farm machinery giant Deere & Company. It reported first quarter earnings that missed Wall Street's estimates. The company citing higher raw material costs as well as slowing trade. Net income is expected to be $3.6 billion with a 7% annual growth in equipment sales. Fighting depression in a whole new way, how magnets could help improve mood, next in the country.
Ag Day, brought to you by ESN Smart Nitrogen, the smartest way to reduce nitrogen losses through wet soil, hot, dry conditions, or microbial attacks in standing water. Learn more at smartnitrogen.com. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
It's common to be depressed in the wintertime, but for some it's a problem that doesn't go away when the sun shines. Depression affects more than 16 million adults every year. Teresa Snow at the University of Missouri shows us a non-invasive treatment that uses magnets to provide relief.
Sonia Kibbe has a full life.
0 to 1.
She works as a physical therapist, is raising 2 sons, and enjoys weekly pickleball games with a group at her church. But last year, a bout of severe depression stopped her in her tracks.
I get to where I have trouble making decisions. Just dumb little decisions that we make that we don't even think about, I have to think about. And then it just gets me more stressed out.
Even with medication and therapy, Sonia was hospitalized multiple times last year as she tried to battle her depression and thoughts of suicide. Then she heard about a treatment called transcranial magnetic stimulation, or TMS. This coil delivers powerful magnetic pulses to target the part of the brain associated with mood. Dr. Moyed Ithman runs the TMS program at University of Missouri Healthcare.
These pulses will stimulate neurotransmitters, which are the chemical signals, which will improve the communication between different regions of the brain that are responsible for mood regulations. And over time, this will improve the symptoms of depression.
It feels like someone gently tapping on your head, which can cause a headache. Sonia took an over-the-counter pain reliever before her daily 20-minute treatments. After just 1 week, she noticed a real difference.
During that second week, I went and got a haircut, and I just felt so much better.
After more than 30 treatments, her symptoms of depression almost disappeared.
Basically, 50–60% of people who suffer from treatment-resistant depression will see a clinically meaningful response to TMS, and 1/3 of these people will go into remission, which means that their symptoms will go away.
Sonia was able to go back to work and get back to the activities and friends she enjoys.
2.
From the University of Missouri, I'm Teresa Snow.
The treatment is recommended for people like Sonia who don't find relief with medication and therapy. We're told it's generally covered by insurance. That's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. Start your week with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day.